So, yeah, my name is Dr. Dawn Meng, and I'm a practicing psychotherapist. And I like to help people in the church specifically, and have some things to talk to you today about mental health and care in the church of those who are maybe seeing a psychiatrist or needing mental health issues resolved or emotional distraughtness, anything like that. Basically, in my experience, years ago, the church used to deal with mental illness as a demonic thing and something that was basically feared by a lot of church leaders. They didn't know what to do with it. And I'm talking basically a lot about the charismatic movement, not so much the mainstream churches. I think the mainstream churches like Methodist, Catholic, Presbyterian, and such had dealt with that like years ago, and had it set in place how they were going to deal with the mentally ill and sending people to psychiatrists and that type of thing. But it wasn't up until recently, maybe in the last 10 years, that it's been understood in the charismatic movement or evangelical movement in some churches that it's there and that is able to you're able to deal with it in a healthy way. And there's just some people that in the church have problems with their brain function, which is what it comes down to, and need medication to function and become perfectly functional human beings in their life duties and job and school. And a lot of times these mental illnesses can start even in the teenage years and continue all the way through adulthood. Sometimes there's cases where, let's say, there's a death in the family or something that causes a brief depression that's not a clinical depression, but maybe they need medication to just get them over the hump. And of course, I don't recommend self-medication or self-medicating, so to speak. Always, if you are feeling depressed or the grief or have manic depression, such as a bipolar type mood, you always want to seek out psychiatric help and not necessarily say, oh, that was a demon, or that I'm just created this way. Because really, there's a lot of medications out there these days that can help those who are mentally ill and psychologically distraught. Now, those that don't need medication are those who are maybe they're just oppressed from a spouse, maybe. As a matter of fact, I just got through counseling with someone this week who has been under abuse and sexually, verbally, physically for almost 30 years. And that in her case, she could use probably some medication, but that's not my first approach, because my first approach is trying to see if there's some unforgiveness or bitterness in her life that she really needs to get close to the Father and snuggle up and just be intimate with the Lord and just say, hey, Lord, I've had it. This is just something that I can't deal with right now by myself. I'm separated from my husband. I love my husband, but it's a sick love. And that type of thing needs to be dealt with by usually a professional. Most pastors need help in this area because they're not educated enough in the psychological realm. Now, some pastors who have like a bachelor's in psychology or sociology can help, but even then, master's degrees are preferable, and even doctorates are much better, because it's like saying, I was talking to my husband this morning and about what I was going to be saying, and I thought, it's like when you have a bachelor's in psychology, it's related to like an engineer who maybe just has a bachelor's in chemistry. And so you got to have the whole pancake, so to speak, the whole peanut butter and jelly sandwich, so to speak. And even if you're not licensed as a pastor, but you have the education, and you're ordained, and you're permitted to counsel in your state, then you can do that probably with a lot of authority. But I also encourage you to get help. Maybe there's someone in your church, maybe there's a friend of a friend or a friend that knows the psychological things that you can help a person in your church. There's books. There's several books that are out there. There's YouTube videos. There's ebooks. There's many resources out there that can help you to deal with the psychological and emotional problems of those that are in the church. A lot of times too, there's people that are what I call repeat offenders that are in the church, and they will just like say, okay, well, I'm depressed, and then they get healed, and they get depressed, and then they get healed, and it's like, okay, well, what's going on here? Okay, one time in a church I went to, there was this type of person that was a cyclical type depression person, and the fact of the matter is, there is a diagnosis that can describe that type of person, and if you don't know that, then you're ignorant of what really is happening with this person. And but what I was able to do with this person was say, hey, maybe you need to go back to your psychiatrist and see if they can give you different medication that will help. Now, this person happened to be dealing with mental health of the state, and that was a difficult situation, because a lot of times people who work for the state don't care as much as a person that has their own practice like I do. And so just, it's like kind of like a luck of the draw if you get a good psychiatrist or psychologist with mental health. And so if you're the type of person, like a pastor, that can go alongside of them, like the Holy Spirit comes alongside of us, and go with them physically to the mental health office and say, hey, I really care about this parishioner, or I really care about this member, and say, okay, what kind of medications do you have to offer them that will not make them look like a zombie all day? And just, make them really not functioning, and make them maybe disabled. And, that's, that's a sad case. And I hate to see those, because when you're properly medicated and you're properly helped by a good psychotherapist that can get down to emotional roots and issues, then that is just really the best scenario. And I just Want to pray a blessing for all those pastors and teachers and counselors that are out there, and just be blessed and go for it and just do the best you can, because that's all that God is asking. Okay, and just to conclude, I'd like to thank you for listening today. And again, this is Dr. Dawn Meng with Service in the Sun Marriage and Family Child Therapy. And see you next time.